Welcome to the Roost, episode 1.
Yeah,
My name is Cisco MacArthur, and this is my brother, Johnny MacArthur.
What's up, y'all?
And we decided to start a podcast because we like to talk sometimes, and we talk with each other quite a bit. And we find that we're a little passionate about certain things in our lives. Don't touch that. And so kind of bear with us, be patient with us. We're learning all this stuff, and eventually, hopefully, we'll have a little bit of gear, and we'll have a little better editing, and we'll learn better about how to do all this. But it seems fun. It seemed like something to do.
Hey, you guys will evolve with us, and you get to follow us in our journey pursuing our passions.
Yeah. Exactly. So we're both from, we live in St. George, Utah.
Yes.
We were both born in Shiprock, New Mexico.
Gang, baby.
Gang. Hey, so there's a couple topics we find passionate, that we are passionate about, that we love talking about. One thing that's important to us is recovering sobriety. You know, I'm a recovering alcoholic / addict. My brother, the same. But we have some recovery. We have some experience. We have some empathy for people who are living in addiction and who are going through either the same things we are, or who haven't quite found a solution. The second thing that we tend to love or like to be up to date on typically is world events, current events, things that we might have our own opinions on. A lot of this will be just our opinions. We will try to share facts as we find them, but a lot of it is just how we feel about certain topics that go on in the world or in our life in particular. The third thing, which I think a lot of people do care about and love, is conspiracy theories and weird shit.
Weird shit. You know? I love it.
Especially this guy right here.
I subscribe to so many of the weird channels, like, of course, the GOAT, Joe Rogan. Like, I'm glad that he kind of, honestly, he broke the stigma around conspiracy theory stuff. I remember back in the day, Art Bell was like a big one, Coast to Coast AM. And Dad was a truck driver. So, he ruined me at a young age by letting me listen to Art Bell with him. And it just blew my mind. But you can't just share that information with just anybody. There's got to be you got to test the waters and be like, so what you think about Bigfoot, or what do you think about UFOs? But then it's these conspiracy theories we're finding out are conspiracy facts, and these people that were labeled as crazy, and their lives were ruined because they were willing to shed some light on some topics, right? And that's scary, man. After Art Bell was discredited and, basically they Tanya Harding'd his ass and clubbed his knees out from under him. And then, George Norrie took it over. He was a little bit less opinionated, I think, about certain things. And so it hit better with, there was not as much. He didn't have any bias about stuff. He was just asking straightforward questions. And it gained a lot of traction. A lot of people are really interested in knowing some of these strange taboo topics. And it's 2025, man. We can literally talk about anything now.
Well. In any case, hey, I got a question for you. If Joe Rogan, say his car broke down in front of his house, in front of our house, and he knocked on our door and he came up here,
I could smoke him in jiu-jitsu, dude.
How would you act? Because I think you'd be like this little, oh my gosh, it's Joe Rogan. And then you'd faint. I don't think you'd have the joke you had at all, because you'd be like this little girl, starstruck girl that just saw Elvis.
Completely accurate. He really is the GOAT. His whole career is something to be admired, just to see where he's at right now. How would I act? I don't know. I would offer him a glass of water or something. It's hot as hell. I would wonder what he's doing here in St.
Maybe him and Theo are visiting Theo's family or something like that.
Hey,
just at the next town over. Hey, second question on that. If he said, all right, I got a couple minutes, ask me one question. What question would you want to ask him?
What's the most impactful conspiracy theory that you now know is fact? What's the one thing that you maybe went in skeptical about, but after a certain interview were fed information in which you formulated, it swung you to the other side, and it convinced you, and you want to share that but you know that if you share that with everybody, you're going to
It
get.
could be like career ending or life ending.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so certain that there are so many topics that he, touches on where later, he probably couldn't release certain podcasts or whatever. I remember there was this one guy that he had on that's like this mushroom expert, and Joe just asked him like, so what's the deal with this? I don't remember what the mushroom portobello or something.
Of course.
And the guy's like, I reserve my right to talk about it. Like his life was going to get ended, and Joe was like, what? Like, we're talking about mushrooms, and the guy's like, I'm serious. Like, it goes no further than this. And I was like,
some people are really fanatical though, but there are, those people that just disappear when they start sharing some things, which I get. Like, it starts freaking you out,
Oh yeah, when we're talking about billion-dollar industry, like, what's my life worth to, when you start jeopardizing you start playing with their money, like they have enough resources to make it look like an accident, just like, look like the trail of bodies that, allegedly that, Diddy has in his wake, or, the Clintons or something like that. Don't smoke me, Clintons. Like, I said allegedly. I don't have an opinion one way or another, man. Yeah. First podcast,
you're like, hey, I'm just a drug addict. I don't know.
For sure. I think that's, there's a certain amount of credibility to that statement, because I say that often. That's like my number one disclaimer. Like, don't take anything I say too serious. Take it with a grain of salt, because I literally I've spilt more drugs than most of you have ever seen. Facts.
That's a shame. That's a lot of carpets. That's a lot of long nights.
And a lot of time.
That's why when they came out with LVP floors and people were putting in these floors, all the drug addicts were like, yay.
It was a game changer. Game changer, dude. What's inside of my Roomba can keep me.
The little Roombas running around with a straw. Just snort.
It's the hardest working Roomba on the fucking planet.
Right. Well, talking about addiction and everything like that, we want to kind of introduce and kind of qualify ourselves in like a small way. I mean, throughout these podcasts, we're going to bring on some people. We're going to bring up our addictions. It's been a part of our life. It's been a part of our family, part of our growing up, part of our heritage.
Yeah.
Me and my brother are both Native American, both Navajo or Diné.
Didn't
And from the Four Corners region.
Yeah.
But well, my name, like I said, is Cisco. Francisco is my full name. I have over 5 years of being sober. I owe that all to God and to my wonderful support group, my brother, my beautiful girlfriend, and just my close friends that I bring around me and who 100% support me. If I didn't have my small circle, I would not be where I'm at today. I do know one of the key elements of staying sober is keeping your circle tight and making sure that you're hanging out with people who want to say things that you want.
Yeah.
And my friends right now, I mean, I don't know of any of us that are necessarily millionaires. I mean, there might be some that are some of my closer friends. I don't know, but it's not necessarily money. This life is about happiness.
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me, and living life on life's terms. And, it's not always going to be easy, but there is going to be happiness. And you want to try to keep that happiness for as long as it goes. And if life is hard, you're unhappy, then you know that there's a way to get happy again. You don't fall into that despair. And I think a lot of my friends that I consider my closest friends have that. And that's why I keep them around. And that's probably why they keep me around, because I try to keep that same mentality also.
Yeah, it's a big part of it, right? Like, what the big book says about that is I have a daily reprieve, a spiritual reprieve contingent a daily reprieve contingent on my spiritual maintenance. And what that means to me is at the end of the day, what I am searching for these days is peace and serenity, just to calm the voices down that are in my head. And it can get overwhelming at times. And I know that those voices took me to some super dark places. And to be honest, I got a certain amount of, there was a payoff that I got in romancing these dark ideas and being the wet blanket in the room, or being the downer, the Debbie Downer of everybody, and talking about the macabre and the dark, romancing death and things like that. And it got to a point where, you realize that you're manufacturing your reality with those thoughts, and you got to start changing your thoughts. And it all starts with, changing your environment.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that'll start to change when you change your thoughts, is you'll start to see your environment change. And with that, people that are in that environment also, they're going to change, man. And you're going to start attracting people that are more on your vibration level, people that are wanting the same things that you're wanting, right? And, all of that is thanks to, for me, a 12-step program that which I clean house, I trust God, and I serve others.
Yeah. And it really is that simple,
For sure. Yeah.
I think at first that the cleaning house does seem a little difficult. A lot of it is because it comes with friends, it might come with family, it might come with a husband or wife that is very toxic or still in their addiction, and they have no attempt or will to even get out of it. And so it makes it even harder to clean house in certain situations like that. But I do know, and this might sound harsh or whatever and stuff, if you really want to have happiness, you have to let all that go.
Yeah. As my good friend Ryan Parko says, you have to die to your old life.
Yeah.
You have to die to it, literally. And that means there's a whole ego death that comes along with that, right? My identity was wrapped up in this idea that I was like the Scarface type.
Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
When you're living out there in the freaking gutters, going from place to place, and you think like you're some sort of kingpin, or you're like the man, or all because either you're the one with the bag, or you're the one that knows how to run a lick on something so you can get a little $50 bag, and all of a sudden you're the man, you're the guy to talk to, and you're just walking around like this with your backpack and
10 foot tall and full of
yeah.
Yep. And it's and it's just the delusional mindset that comes along with any kind of chemical. Over embellishment of any kind of chemical will lead you there, right? It's a false idol that you're worshiping, and when you do that, it's going to make you feel a certain way, and to keep you locked in that mindset where every day was all the exact same, man. And there wasn't much improvement. It was getting worse and worse as the days were going along. So I'm really grateful that I don't live that way anymore, that neither one of us live that anymore. It's a trip to think about, the fact that you got 5 years. That's a trip. I have a little over 3.5 years. My sobriety date is 10/1/21, and that's after 15 residential treatments, tons of different drug court. Really grateful to drug court way back in 2000 when I first signed up into drug court. 2001 or 2002 was when I started, when there was this amazing guy. His name was Honorable Judge Shoemate out of St. George. And man, that guy, he helped to plant some seeds in my, I got to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous from a little nudge from a judge, like many people do. And there's no shame in that whatsoever. I mean, that guy really saved my life, but it took a lot of thorough, experimentation and research into finding out that I really am powerless over people, places, and things. Any kind of chemical, when it enters my body, all bets are off.
When do you remember what age and what was your first drug?
Yeah. When I was 10 years old, on New Year's Eve, Mom and Dad, they went to Mesquite with the neighbors. We lived in Section 8 housing, and the neighbor was the building manager for the property manager or whatever. She lived on site. And so they all went down to Mesquite to go do their swinger parties that they would do. And they left me in charge to babysit the kids that were there. So I was 10 years old, maybe 10 years and 3 months. And then there was an 8-year-old I was watching, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And as soon as the parents left and I knew where the vodka was at, I lined up shots for all of us, for all the kids.
Jesus.
They all sipped theirs and didn't want any more. So I took all 4 of those shots down. And I just remember that feeling, instantaneous, warm and fuzzy. And I felt a sense of ease and comfort that I would forever be searching for after that. So my first substance was alcohol.
Yeah. Mine was too. Now to bring it up, one of the memories I do have of my childhood is in Minnesota, and I don't know how old we were then or how old I was, but I remember Mom giving me a wine cooler, and she was already partying and doing some other things, and Dad, I'm sure he was there. I can barely remember any of it, but I remember it was this, weird, almost like lava lamps with a wine cooler,
like Bartles and James.
Yeah, and I just remember it was sweeter, I guess, but like wine, I guess now is what I would compare it to, like a sweet wine and stuff. But remember, I don't know if I drank it all or anything like that, but I do remember drinking some of it, and that would probably be my first thing. But I think where I consciously made a choice of using drugs, I'd have to say that it was when I was in high school, and it would have been smoking weed.
Yeah.
And it was that freaking, it's not like weed nowadays. Nowadays, it's like all chronic, they don't even call it chronic now.
They don't.
They call it like Darth Vader or peanut butter and jelly or, whatever they freaking call it and stuff like that. But
yeah.
Remember, like, back in the day, the first one that I got, they had these dilly dallies. Like, I remember the dude that we got it from, it was down by the college, and he had these little dilly dallies. They call them dilly dallies. They're these little things you first weighed a nickel on it to make sure it leveled up. It had these little markings on it, and he weighed us out this little bag. And I remember it has a little clip on it, and he clipped on this. It almost looked like freaking, the seaweed they wrap around sushi. He pulls something like that out. It's all crispy, and he clips it on there, and it's all like that and stuff. And it was brownish, a little bit of green, like
that stress.
Yeah, it looked like something from Vietnam, like army fatigues that have been used and freaking washed 1,000 times. But anyways, he picks it up and stuff like that, and weighs out whatever he weighs out, whatever we were getting. I don't even know. N8 or something. I don't know if it was that much that we were getting. Anyways, he gets in. That's what I thought weed was. Anyways, I didn't know there was anything else at that point. And we get it, and we go up in the hills and stuff, and we smoke in the back of me and my buddy's truck. And back then, it was pretty innocent fun and stuff like that. I didn't use a lot from them, but I do remember the head change and like the things that came from it. My drug of choice was. I would have to say it's alcohol. Even though I went on this stint of using methamphetamine for a little while, But, I do believe, though, that if I would have never had that experience of that head change through those little times that I had them, when life started getting a little stressful and bullshit when I got older and stuff like that, I probably would have never thought to sedate myself, properly programmed, I think, to work out my problems or find a solution on things. I probably would have tried to work it, but the thing that you find out with drugs and with alcohol, the calming effect, the head change is almost instantaneous.
Yeah.
So you don't have to really work or figure out anything to feel good.
Well,
you just get that.
It's in a sense, it's like a hack, right? It gives you like instant euphoria. Don't get me wrong, the drugs turn on you at a certain point. Turns on everything.
Isn't that on Fear and Loathing? The drugs turned on me.
Yeah, can't stop here. This is backcountry, dude. It's funny though that you mentioned that because the weed thing. My first chemical other than alcohol was also marijuana, but same deal, right? Some jerky bud,
some brick weed.
And some of that dirt, man. Some of that stress. And Dad actually had a mistress in Hurricane, Utah, and he drove me over to her house. She had a boy that was about my age. I think he was a year or maybe 2 years older than me. I think he was 13 or 14 and I was 11. And after Dad dropped off this brick to this lady, they left to go do whatever, and they left me and him there alone. And he's like, "Hey, check it out, your dad came over. That means that we got some." And I was like, "Some what?" He pulls out this Tupperware container under his mom's bed, and there was brick in there. when you got like a brick that's anywhere from, a pound to a kilo to, it could have been a 10-pack for all I know. I don't really remember. I just remember it was a large chunk of weed. You lose all like concept of like perspective there.
Yeah.
So he breaks off like a corner and he's like, yeah, let's go. And I'm like, all right. And we go out in there's like canals that run at under the H in a hurricane. And we go up there and, we poke some holes in a can. And then like we didn't de-seed it or de-stem it or any of that. And for you youngsters that don't know, the weed that we had, it was full of seeds. They're called hippie hand grenades because you'd be hitting that shit in a bowl and it would just pop, throw flaming debris.
And it wasn't good popcorn either.
No, it wasn't
like these kernels came out you could just eat.
It was terrible and super harsh. And he put this pile on top of this can. When I'm looking back at it, it was like easily like a quarter ounce on top of this can. And we just sat there and roasted the whole thing. We were hacking and coughing and felt the head change. And we walked over to, they have this little waterfall area with a little pond right there by Hurricane. And we followed the canal over to it. And the ground started like little dirt clods were hopping around and we're like, what the hell is happening? And there were little frogs. As we were walking, they were jumping in the pond. And, I'm 11, he's like 13. We're doing what little kids do. We start catching all of these frogs, putting them inside of pop bottles, and we take them back over to his house. And we're like, look at all these frogs we caught and shit. And his mom's looking at us like, guys, look, are you guys stoned? And we're like, he laughs and I'm like, oh, don't tell my dad. You know what I know, the kind of stuff
I know back then.
Really getting into. It progressed for me much further than it did for you. I didn't dabble in methamphetamines. I was a freaking connoisseur of all sorts of chemicals and substances. And my favorite method of doing it was intravenously. And initially I was like a snob about it, where I only wanted to do my OC 80s and cocaine, chronic only. But, towards the end of my run, I didn't care, bro.
Yeah.
I really didn't. I was getting into fentanyl. I was doing goofballs with meth and heroin. I was smoked crack. I shot crack with lemon juice. Don't do that. Don't do that. I shouldn't have said the lemon juice part. But just, I know I'm giving them recipes. It's like that shit. Yeah. All of my favorite friends came out of the TV. Yeah.
Just all taking notes.
Yeah. If your kids are listening to this podcast, shame on you as a parent, right? Dude. Yeah, this is clearly for...
Yeah, this is going to be R-rated probably a lot of the times because we're just talking about real stuff.
Yeah, we're both adults.
So this is an adult podcast.
Adults.
But anyways, moving on to a current event that I think has both kind of struck us as for me, it's scary. It is. It's one of those things that has made me rethink what the future could look like, the near future, and maybe into our further future and everything like that. But it's what's happening in Iran.
Yeah.
In my opinion, what we did as the United States is an act of war.
Sure.
I think Iran, from what I'm seeing from them, there's mixed things, but from what their press put out and everything like that, they didn't mention act of war. They didn't mention aggression. They weren't aggressive or anything on it. They just talked about how there has to be more clarity in the laws and the bylaws of the world, I guess, of what can and can't be done. They didn't. Now, I don't know the whole backstory or anything like that of what kind of warning we as the government or President Trump gave them. He just dropped 3 bombs on their facility, and these are big bombs.
More than 2. He just happened to drop 2 bombs on one facility, but there was 3 facilities that got taken out with a total of 6 bombs. Each of these B-2 bombers are equipped with two bombs with, I want to say it's some ridiculous number, 6,000 pounds.
No, it was bigger than that. It was like 40,000 or something crazy.
Yeah.
But it was really crazy. And these bombs can reach down, the ones that we dropped go down 300 feet
Yeah.
So they get into the bunker, they explode, and they're 300 feet. From the pictures that I saw, they were just catastrophic. I mean, they're huge.
The payload of these bombs it's um, the biggest bomb outside of an atomic
Yeah.
bomb. So like it's like literally one step below a freaking nuke.
Yeah.
It's big. I don't know, man. We have no business getting involved in wars that are across the sea, meddling in someone's conflict that they've had going for 5,000 years. You know, I remember Desert Storm and, you know, the 9/11 and these are like pivotal moments. These are I don't remember us not inhabiting the Middle East in
Yeah.
some capacity where we're exerting our efforts and our taxpayer dollars are going towards weapons of mass destruction and, you know, taking the lives of shit, man. It's such a heavy thing to weigh in on because obviously you can't help but have some sort of an opinion about it. I mean, the whole world literally is watching this and watching
Yeah.
how we operate. And I'm just glad I'm not the president. Like,
Yeah.
what a heavy burden bears the crown, or however that statement goes. Like, heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? He's having to, President Trump is having to make decisions that I'm so grateful I do not have to make anything
Yeah.
where it comes to taking lives of men, women, and children.
I just think that I think the fear that I have with something like this is I'm proud to be American. I will fight for America. I'll fight for my family. I'll fight for our freedoms and everything like that. But there's a lot of us that are we feel, I think, the same way. We back our presidents, you know, and we voted him into office.
Sure.
And so it's not necessary that we're going to agree with everything because we don't make these choices. We don't know fully even what's going on and what was exactly said or anything like that. Plus the president, you know, he doesn't even know all. He takes it from all his advisors and people that tell him everything, and then they make a group decision, and then, you know, the president makes a final decision on like what happens. But at the same time, it's fearful to me because I see that I can see a strategic move in something like this by taking a small country and flexing on them in the way to where, and to show the rest of the world or these bigger countries who might be allies with Iran saying, you know, we don't bullshit. When we say we're going to do something, we'll do it. And knowing that there's a great chance Iran is not going to retaliate. They don't have the means to retaliate. They already got their own war going on. But the thing that I kind of see that could have been a better move, and maybe, you know, I don't make these calls. I don't think like this. I'm not a strategic in war or anything like that. But is, you know, typically you some warning shots. You know, typically there's bunker busters. There's things that are a little smaller that just kind of show like, hey, we mean business.
Sure.
But at the same time, maybe, I mean, it seems to have got a lot of attention for sure.
Yeah, I like that point you brought up when you and I were discussing this earlier about, you know, finding the biggest guy, you know, in prison.
Yeah.
You find the biggest guy and you take him out to make a statement, you know, like that movie Ender's Game. They do that, like what Ender does in the beginning of Ender's Game. Like he just beats the snot out of this kid. And, you know, Harrison Ford, he asks him, why did you do that to him? And he goes, I didn't want to just win this battle, but every battle after this.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, it's a kind of, I understand that mentality fully. That makes sense to me. You know, every time I've been incarcerated and I get in a fight in jail, I don't say, let's go to the shower. Like, I'm like, we're handling this in the day room because I want everybody to see. I don't want there to be, you know, different narratives. You're not going to spin this some other way. Like, you're going to go to sleep in front of everybody, in front of God and everybody. They're going to see that, you know, but I think a lot of that is ego.
I think we just have to trust too that the president of the United States and the CIA and everybody else that we have out there, that we give them these budgets to gather information. Now they were saying that these facilities were for some new kind of power system or new kind of stuff like that, you know, and
nuclear power.
And that's what they were saying. Research on that kind of stuff and to make it cleaner energy, whatever it may be. But it sounds like the intel that the president got that this was or has, see, and that's a fine line because anywhere we're working with nuclear power and stuff, they probably have the capacity to make nuclear or bombs and things like that.
Yeah, weapons
That's
of
a
mass
mass destruction.
yeah.
So it is a fine line. So, but we have to trust that his intel was 100. That they were crossing, they were teetering on the other side of that's what they were doing. That's what their plans were.
And it's so hard just because we get spun a narrative. We get fed information through multiple sources. And if they're all saying the same thing, whether we consciously or subconsciously know, we are being influenced by this information that's coming into us, especially when it's like fear driven. Like the information that we have been presented is Iran is, the manufacturer of the world's leading terrorist manufacturer. There's more factions that come out of, or terrorist organizations that come out of Iran, followed by Pakistan. And these are like, that is in their name. So it's like, it's definitely a heavy push for like fear. And as Americans, it's super hard for me anyway, to personalize it. Like if there's someone that's a threat 10,000 miles away or whatever, and we can end them with just like the push of a button, get to push that button. I want the best quality of life for myself. When you hear different media outlet report that, Iran, they only targeted, so the reason why we stepped in is because Iran and Israel are under conflict and they're exchanging blows. Israel attacked first and they strategically they tried to cut off the head of the snake. And what that means is they took out the top brass or the top generals or whatever they call themselves, warlords or whatever they have. And then, effectively too, they killed everybody besides their supreme leader. And then Iran retaliated and they shot a bunch of missiles back at Israel, like Tel Aviv and I want to say Jerusalem also, but I'm not certain about that. But what I do know is they showed the destruction of the Israel side much more than they showed the destruction of the Iran side. And from an alternative news source, they're saying that Israel literally just bombed the crap out of, they shot missiles at, they didn't really care if they were killing women and children, whereas Iran was trying to take out military installations or military, like the equivalent of the Pentagon is how it was presented on this alternative news source. And even Fox News covered that for a second, but they ushered out the reporter. So it's just super confusing, like what's real, what isn't. How come I'm being spun a narrative? Well, probably because our taxpayer dollars are funding this war, And so I am grateful and I am proud to be an American, right? We're Dene, we're like the original Americans, right? But as far as trusting the government, again, we're Native American. Show us a time in history when the government should ever be trusted, coming from our perspective and point of view. That's a lot of faith you're asking from us. From what they did to our people, it's just, why would they change?
Yeah. Well, one of the other fears that I have also is that, there's American citizens here who are immigrants from Iran and who might have family, relatives, best friends, or anything like that live in Iran right now that are going through all this stuff. And, they've stood by America. They've heard, and maybe they have extremists that are family that are living over there that are constantly talking in their ears saying this and that and America this, that, they're evil, like whatever they're telling them and stuff. Like, no, I live here, it's a great country. But now all of a sudden, their loved ones across the world are getting basically, beat up by the United States, killed if they're killed in bombings, or threatened that there could be worse,
Sure.
To where like now some of the things that they've been talking in their ears start to get down through it. And it could be whatever, and they want to protect their people. So I just worry about what could happen within the United States of people living here who might get extreme, and that can go for any country too. They're doing a lot of things. There's a lot of news on the ICE things and the riots. and just things like that. And it is getting a little crazy out there. We
getting very crazy politically. You've got, I'm not going to disclose my political views on here necessarily on whether I'm Republican, Democrat, or anything in between. That's a personal thing. I'm going to hold that close to my chest. But what I do see is some crazy things happening, like those lawmakers up in Minnesota, where we have family in Minnesota, right? Dad lives in Minnesota. He lives in St. Cloud. And that's freaking terrifying, man. Some guy dresses up as a cop and goes right up to his intended target's house, knocks on the door, and puts a couple in not just the politician's head, but in her spouse's head, like kills both of them, and then goes. Well, first he went to another house, same thing, lawmakers, thought he smoked both of them, didn't. He shot them both. They both didn't. He was sloppy about it, didn't make sure that they were both dead, and then left to another house like 6 miles away to another lawmaker. And apparently he had a list. He had a hit list. Yeah. All of these lawmakers that he was going to go do. And he had, not just a disguise that made him look like he was law enforcement, but also he had an SUV that was, I don't know if he bought it like as a pre-used, because my car is a pre-used DEA car, right, that I got off auction, and it looks like a cop car. Yeah. Right. When I'm hammering on the freeway, people move out of the way because they think I love my car, dude. Because they think that I'm creeping up on them, pull them over, so they get out of the way. And this guy had an SUV that looked like that, had all the markings, it had lights on it, and all of that. And it's scary, man. And these are regular American citizens. Like, if you've ever been to Minnesota, those are the nicest people in the world, and nice enough to where they're going to open the door to somebody without saying, "You got a warrant?" They just opened the door up to this guy and he smoked him. Super sad, super scary time to be living in, right? The political, just the divide between the peoples, like you have to be one side or you have to be the other, and how people are so anti-Trump that they don't even hear what he's saying. They're just adamantly opposed to it, viciously opposed, without knowing all the facts. Yeah. And that's just scary. How come nobody's talking about the multiple assassination attempts on his life? What happened to that?
Yeah. I think with some of that, though, I think there's some things about Trump that I almost think that's him saying, let's not worry about me. And whether that's just him, like I said, there's always an agenda to how everybody works when you're like that high. And so it could be one of those things where by doing that, it definitely makes Donald Trump look like he's not worried about himself. He's worried about people. But if you're already if that's your game plan, if that's your strategy, then it's actually coming from more of a bad place.
That's not
good intentions. He is of course worried about his own health and his own safety and everything, and he loves being president. He loves the power that it gives him. We know that about Donald Trump and how he holds himself.
Yeah, again, we just live in such a unique time where someone like him could ever obtain that position. That's crazy. 20 years ago, if you would have said Donald Trump was going to be president, it would have been like, you're fired?
No, like honestly, I don't even know when I first saw or knew about Donald Trump or something. This is years ago. I seriously, in my head, was like, that guy is going to be president.
You did this, man.
We'll do a whole segment on manifestation. Oh, sure. There are even two of them, because of my thoughts on that, because it goes deep.
It really does.
But so this is our first episode, like I said, and we're going to wrap up here in just a minute.
Let's talk about some weird shit.
You want to talk about some weird shit?
Yeah.
Okay, so me and my girl, we had our 11th month anniversary yesterday.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So, congrats. Let's see, we got so we got some of that. But no, so we went out and we did this little thing that she saw, and like, I don't know, TikTok or something about doing paper, rock, scissors, about things to do throughout your date night. You know, you pick where to go to dinner. Whoever wins, they get to pick dinner and things like that.
Oh, that's fun.
So
yeah, that's cute.
Yeah, so she won every time. And what was even crazier is like, you know, me and her are very competitive in like a lot of things, but her seems like she's a little more competitive than I am. But I asked her the question, like, you know, if I would have won paper, rock, scissors, would you wanted to do best out of three? Because, you know, typically when I play paper, rock, scissors, best out of three, you know. So when we did our first one, she's like, oh, I win. And that was it. I'm like, it's not best out of
2
three.
out of 3. Everybody
but I
knows
was
that.
just like, you know, and so then we're doing it again, and she wins again. Oh, I win, and I'm like, so if I would have won, would you have said we get best out of 3? And she's like, no, that's just the way the game's played. And I'm like, all right, yeah. But anyways, you know, that's how it goes. But anyways, she's a sweetheart. I love her to death. She's beautiful. One of the things that towards the end of the night, she wanted to do this thing where, you know, you paint each other. You know, you sit across from each other and you paint each other, all right?
Yeah.
So I am by no means an artist. I told her this. I low-key wasn't exactly looking forward to it. I thought it was going to be kind of boring. It turned out to be really fun, and I would recommend it to anybody out there who wants to have a fun date night that's not too expensive. We went to Walmart and got the materials and everything like that.
How much did it cost?
It might have cost like less than $15.
Oh,
for some paintbrushes, some watercolor paints, and some little canvases. You get a 2-pack for like $8 or something like that.
Oh, cool.
But anyways, we went and got that stuff, and we come back home, and you know, we had some music playing. We sat down across the table from each other, and we painted some pictures of each other. You know, I've never even thought if she could draw or anything like that. She said she couldn't, so I was like, all right, cool. Well, anyways, so this is what I drew of her. Now, I am going to be adding a picture of what she actually looks like right here, so you'll be able to see.
It looks like a Picasso.
And it's one of those things where, like, we don't get to see what each other's drawing because we're sitting across the seats from each other. You know, she's over there giggling and stuff because she's drawing me. She's like, oh, I don't know, and stuff. And I'm just, you know, not making really much emotion. You know, just doing my thing and everything like that. I had some calls on my phone that I was kind of getting interrupted with and stuff, and I'm doing my stuff. And in my mind, it didn't turn out too bad.
Killed it.
But as you can see, yeah, it definitely doesn't look like her. She's much prettier. I don't know. She looks like Madonna or something like that, like Madonna nowadays. I mean, it looks pretty bad. Fake lips and everything. But I felt pretty proud about the mixing of colors for her skin and everything, though.
Oh, you did
know? I mean, blonde, everything like that. Did a watercolor. She's not good. She even signed it for me. Or I signed it for her. Cisco 25. All right. Now, let me show you me. All right. This is what I look like. All right.
Suspense is
All right.
killing us.
So this is what she draws. Now, I was like, did you get that off of a mugshot or something?
That's what it looks like. She looks like a sketch artist. Why are you wearing a black baby? Looks like you broke into the house.
It looks like she was doing a sketch of somebody just broke in her house.
Yeah.
But luckily, it looks like she got the race wrong too. And these little things, I guess it's supposed to be my shadow or my peach fuzz or something like that. Mustache. I don't have, but
she killed it.
But she got it. But she did get the neck tattoo, so it does look very good right there. But we had a good time. But no, very weird. So due to time, though, we don't have much time to talk about weird shit today. But
we gotta leave them with something weird. Something.
Okay, I got something weird. I got another thing weird.
Okay.
Why is it when you're driving, at least in like St. George, Utah, no one ever gets in the left turn lane? You see everybody in the right turn lane going left. Okay.
Wait, what do you mean in the
so
right?
They have
left?
when you're approaching intersections, you're gonna see like 2 lanes that go left.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, a double
left.
Okay.
When you get to those, everybody's in the right side to turn left.
I've never noticed.
It's crazy because they're so backed up in that lane that they're crossing over and to get
and
over
you
to the
can't
other lane.
get
You're so far back that you can't get in that lane because there's other people that are coming this way. They need to get in that lane to turn left. To go across that way.
No, I got you.
So you have to wait, and then you're driving all the way to the front, looking at everybody like, why are you guys not getting this lane? And I understand in some situations they got to get onto the freeway or something, but I'm thinking like up here, if you're And these people are here, and you got this big line. You're still going to get on the freeway before them because they're going to edge out, and you'll be able to merge over and get in that traffic.
I don't think that bad drivers are that weird. I think that people just they can suck at driving, and it's important to be a defensive driver. I love driving. I love it, and I don't ever get that upset at people. I don't ever yell like, "What the
That's
hell?"
crazy road rage.
Oh, I know. Yo, I know.
Yeah, if you ever see me driving on the roads and you live in St. George, Utah, and you think that I'm singing some music, no, because my radio is never on. It's me yelling.
At you. He's yelling at you because
I'm
you
yelling at
can't
you.
drive.
Just watch
But
out.
I love driving, and I don't really see stuff like that often. I do want to say one thing. Prayers go out to all the people up in Pine Valley Mountain. It's a place, it's a little town that's close to here in St. George. We have this beautiful mountain up here, big blue mountain. It's gorgeous, and it's called Pine Valley Mountain. And there's a huge fire that just started 2 days ago. And the last I checked, it was 0% contained. They evacuated a small town out there, the town of Pine Valley, and Pinto is being evacuated. Globally, this isn't going to affect most people out there, but being from a small, southern Utah town, we all know everybody. Aunt Kay and Uncle Harv have a cabin up there that we used to go to all the time, and that might not be there anymore.
It's there. It went so far, almost a little past, like to the church, a little past maybe, but then the winds totally changed and just started taking it all the way to the east.
Yeah, it's
So,
up to how many
14,
acres?
well, 14 homes, 6,500 acres. So it is crazy.
Anyway, they're in our thoughts and our prayers,
Mhm.
and yeah, super big tragedy for our little localized area. But anyway,
Anyways, everybody have a great Sunday and a great week, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.